The Endangered Species Act. And this is, we want to clarify some things that people understand. Most of the time, the government responds to a petition. They don't have time because they're responding to over 400 petitions in the last several years. Once a petition is filed, they're supposed to make a finding in 90 days. If they don't do it, they can be sued. They settle. They pay the legal fees for the people that sued them. So it's become a real, I will call it a racket, but it's become a really sensitive issue where one of these environmental groups has collected close to $7 million in legal fees by doing sue and settle. And then they're supposed to make a final decision within 1 year, and they can get a 6-month extension. Next. These are the mega petitions I was referring to a few minutes ago. If you notice, of these, this is U.S., this is covering 53 species in 45 states. This is the coral petition that some of you are familiar with, and this one is listing the Bangkok coral along with some other corals. Next. And then we have this one involving the damsels, which the only one they're really going after right now is the clownfish. Next. So, what is the framework? It's supposed to be on the best scientific and commercial data available. And they're not supposed to speculate. Next. If it is endangered, it's endangered at extinction to all or part of its range. Now, in some of these species, especially corals, except for Dr. Barron, they didn't know what the range was. The threatened species within the foreseeable future. Up until recently, that's always been 100 years. But there's some recent decisions on polar bear that want to do it at 45 years, and with the corals, they were talking 50 years. And there's no data. Next. So what does this term really mean? Best scientific commercial data available. And what does this mean? What's an extinction at all part of the range? And what's likely to become in the foreseeable future? We have to deal with those issues on every petition. And if they post it as endangered, next slide, it becomes a very complex problem. But to list, the government must review the present or threatened destruction, modification, and curtailment of the range. Now, in some cases, there's no really good scientific data as to the extent of the range, as I will get to a slide in a minute. This is where we get caught in a pinch. It's overutilization for commercial or recreational purposes. And then obviously disease or predation, inadequacy of existing regulatory mechanisms, both here and abroad. And what happens when you're in the high seas? There are no real regulatory mechanisms. So they can say, okay, therefore we have to list. And then, thanks.
You want to go back?
Where you are? Okay. In a listing, they're supposed to have species-specific data. They've been trying not to give species-specific data. They didn't have it. And in the coral listing, they admitted that they did not have species-specific data like many of the corals. In fact, it's even identified. They're supposed to have abundance data, distribution data, trend data, extinction data. And so what happens when they don't have it? They rely on proxies. They went to the IUCN renderers. How many here have ever looked at the IUCN renderers? Go look at it for some of the corals. They say we have no data. But there's possible habitat loss, therefore it's threatened. That is not science. That doesn't meet the statutory criteria. They said habitat loss, that's a proxy. And now climate change is a proxy. So when in doubt, you grab any one of these, and that becomes a justification for listing something as either threatened or endangered. And so the real bottom line is the non-existence of data, the best scientific data available. That will be decided in the courts one of these days. It's a real problem for all